Welcome to Wharton Moneyball. Welcome to a full hour of sports analytics here on the Wharton Podcast Network. This is Cade Massey hosting this week with most of the crew. We have Eric Bradlow in here. We have Adi Wyner in here. Our fourth co-host, Shane Jensen, is out and about doing Shane Jensen things. He'll be back. Some combination of us are here almost every week of the year and have been for going on, 11 and a half years now, well over 10 years now. This is a time of year where everything we love is going on. We've got baseball warming up. We've got pro football kicking off. And we've got college football off the ground. Things have happened. There are things to talk about, real football to talk about, real things to react to. We're going to follow our typical format this week. We're going to have a guest in here for the first half hour and then open topics for the second half hour. Our guest, well, it's college football time. So one of our regular college football guest and one of our favorite all-time guests, Stephen Godfrey, is here. Stephen's been gracing us for years now. Stephen is the co-host of the Phantom Island podcast. He is co-host of Yahoo Sports college football podcast called The Inquirer, I believe, along with Andy Staples and Ross Dellinger, and is a columnist at the Washington Post. Stephen has been at the center of college football dialogue for a long time now, and it's always fun to talk to him. Stephen, thanks for making time for us, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm very excited to add nothing to mathematical conversation whatsoever.
Well, I feel like you've always indulged us well.
I feel like I make that joke every time I come on.
Well, somehow you keep coming back, though. We appreciate that. I think not all journalists are interested in talking with a bunch of data geeks.
Oh, no. I mean, that's kind of how I got my podcasting start with Bill Connolly. So, I mean, I'm used to it. So it's a little bit like interpreting one of your friends at a dinner party to another friend who doesn't work in that field. That's kind of what journalism should be. If we want to get a little existential for a second, trying to translate someone's expertise into layman terms for other people to absorb it. That's basically all I do.
That's great.
Yeah, it's divisive communication. That's all.
Let me just jump in there, Stephen, for a second, because
Yes,
for 20 years I've been running various forms of centers here at Wharton on analytics and AI and machine learning, and I agree with you. One of the biggest challenges we have, what we have a shortage of, in my view, tremendously in the business world, et cetera, is people that can do that translation. So I cannot agree with you more. It's the hardest thing I can tell me as an academic, maybe Cade and Adi feel differently, is translating the work that I do, which can be technical, but to a very broad audience, and not to a level that doesn't mean it's meaningful. It's really hard. So I can just tell you for myself, as part of Wharton Moneyball, we're appreciative of the work you're doing.
No, I love coming on. This is, and usually we end up in a dialogue that's a lot further along than the typical sort of sports radio tropes, if you will. So. But we can do those too if you want. I mean, we can talk about Texas.
You know that I'm going to want to. It does strike me, though, at the risk of propping you up too much.
Not so much.
Hold on. No, I want to do that. But first, I want to say one other thing. It's possible that your podcast with Conley helped advance the whole analytics conversation. I mean, Bill's in the center of things now. Everybody refers to his work now, and you and him, you were like proof of concept that he could have a meaningful college football conversation with a regular football guy. And it was a wonderful podcast, but I bet it did make a difference, Stephen. I bet that was a contribution to the whole analytics movement in the last, 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, but no, Bill and I kind of tapped into something, which is that a lot of people want to learn more about the sport. A lot of people have, let's call it, groundbreaking data or things that they've worked on. And so if you can just work on translating that, what we found, and Bill Connolly is now at ESPN, by the way, and he's great at what he does. When he first developed what he used to call the S&P Plus metric system, now it's the SP Plus metric system, I think he had a hard time getting in the door with coaches, with media, with people to understand its intrinsic value. But if you sit down and you really kind of walk it out in layman's terms, I think if anybody's listening who's a quant, or I don't know if that's a pejorative or not. That's what we call them in the media.
That's what we call ourselves.
Okay.
We call ourselves that.
Okay, in the sports media world, we just say, hey, ask a quant. It's all about the translation. I think people do really want for what advanced statistics and advanced analytics can provide. I think it's just sometimes you lose the forest for the trees a little bit. I do think and maybe y'all can provide anecdotes that push back on this. But in my corner of the world, it seems like we've crossed some sort of Rubicon where you don't have the traditional redneck football coach pushing back the way that we used to, or just saying, hey, that's a bunch of nonsense. If anything, I think, well, first off, I think the median age of decision-making coaches, be it coordinator or head coach, just decision makers in general, is going down. I think they're embracing outside thought. And I think being counterintuitive has provided really, good results for a lot of them. So I don't think there's this hesitancy, just to go to some of these coaching conventions, and a lot of those guys would roll their eyes in the past. I think most of them are embracing it. There are still a few curmudgeons amongst us, but I think that's helped a lot. And I think fans have responded in kind as well.
Is the embrace a result of proven success? And because that's usually how it would happen. Like in baseball, teams doing it were winning and you just couldn't ignore it anymore. But there was a couple of principles that people just changed their minds on, and now they're embracing it. In football, is there anything you could point to? Would it be fourth down decision making?
Yeah, that's the first place I'd go, actually, is I'll give you a great example. Week 0 was Kansas State and Iowa State in Ireland, the sort of like faux kickoff game or what have you. Fairly traditional offenses, which is a big, broad term to use, but a fairly traditional offense on both sides of the ball, especially with Matt Campbell, pretty conservative, almost sort of like redundant in his decision-making with his offense, right? There was a lot of fourth down, I guess, like adventurous decision-making, you could call it. There's a lot of, we're going to go for it in certain situations. That the thing that struck me was that no one talked about it. 5 years ago, there would have been 2 or 3 think pieces going into week 1 about, can you believe that Matt Campbell did this? Can you believe he absorbed this amount of risk? I think it's become commonplace in the industry, even amongst coaches who are, again, who don't really embrace what y'all do, to be more aggressive on fourth down because the numbers have sussed it out. I think they believe in the numbers. That's probably the best example that I can think of off the top of my head. There are some other ones, definitely.
But are they the easy cases, or are they generally moved on to the hard ones? So the easy cases are the 4th and 1s in the red zone that used to be field goals, and now they're going for it almost exclusively. But maybe the harder cases, would those raise some eyebrows if you decided, for example, it's 4th and 1 in your own territory, 35-yard line?
Sure.
That's and the right play is to go for it. Would that be something that they would embrace, or are they still saying no way?
Maybe some of the triple option teams might, 4th and 1, they might feel good about it. But one of the things that has spurred along, let's call it adventurous decision making in fourth down, is that the average IQ of the fan has increased. I'm not taking credit for that with PAPN or anything else, but we brought Quanta in and we said, hey, this is why, or hey, once you're across the opponent's 45, you need to go for it all the time. Now, remember, Iowa was really popular for a long time, guys. That Iowa philosophy of like, they're punting on the opponent's 19, I feel like, up until a couple of years ago. And that was like how that conservatism ruled college football. I think there's outside pressure on some of these coaches throughout a very long offseason to ask those questions and say, hey, hey guys, on the TV, some booster is going to go up to that head coach and say, hey, on the TV, it said you guys had X amount of probability of success rate on going for it on fourth down. Why didn't you? So I think that because advanced analytics has risen to the level it has, I think that coaches have to account for when the math says to do something and they choose against it. There needs to be a concrete example of why they didn't do it. Was it a personnel issue? Was there an injury? What was going on?
So, Stephen, let me ask you just a quick question. It also relates to, how do you decide what to translate? And what I mean by that is, let's take this week in college football. Obviously, there was, Ohio State beating Texas, but, it's not like on a surprising factor. It's not like that's that surprising. You had maybe Alabama losing, right? That's probably a little higher on the surprising factor. You could argue USF blowing out Boise State. I don't know, maybe that's a little surprising, but who cares kind of thing.
Right.
How do you think about the intersection of surprising and interesting to your readers and to when you pick even like games to comment on or talk about?
So I'm only I can't ever exceed the limits of narrative structure, which is a fancy way of saying I have to keep a casual attention span engaged. I have to find a primary concept, and then I have to find supporting information. Now, the better the supporting information, which I have often found in advanced analytics, the stronger my argument can be. So I'm going to give you a really specific example of how I used it this weekend. Sorry, apologies in advance. I am going to talk about Texas. But I called up a friend of mine, Parker Fleming. He's a stats war on social media. Parker is an industry analyst. He works as a consultant and advisor to a lot of different football teams. So Parker's a friend of mine. And after the Texas game, I'm going to back up since we're talking to Wharton, we're talking to some Philly, right? There is an Eagles playoff game. So I'm a lifelong Atlanta Falcons fan, which might be cause for you guys to, I don't know, call in some sort of like social services on me. But I'm a lifelong Atlanta Falcons fan. There's an Eagles Falcons playoff game in 2017 that ends in a truly bizarre play call by Sark. And trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Sark was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons before he went back to the college ranks and he went back to Alabama. Malcolm Jenkins, the Eagles safety at the time, said we knew exactly what they were going to do as soon as they broke the huddle. And they put 3 all-pro receivers on one side of the field and a fullback lined up in the flat on his own. It is one of the most confounding plays. This is goal to go, 4th and goal with the game on the line, okay? Flash forward to last year. Actually, flash forward to 2 years ago, the Texas-Washington playoff game. And remember how that game ends on offense, okay? Now flash forward to last year's playoff game, which is that really sort of bizarre series of play calls at the goal line against Ohio State for Texas. Now, Caleb Downs did Caleb Downs things. There are exceptional physical feats that break math, right? That you can't account for the probability of something happening. However, Sark's decision-making, absolutely mind-blowing in that situation. So we saw a little bit of that again on Saturday. Now, a lot of it was just they're in a goal-to-go situation. They're going to push. They can't get there. But there was that sort of specter of Sark's inability to call red zone plays in big moments. So how do I go from it's a thing we all feel to actually laying out a narrative structure for someone to absorb? How do I take it out of the realm of opinion? So I asked Parker specifically after the game at 3:30 on Saturday, Central Time. I said, is there any kind of stat, is there any kind of number that backs up the sort of LOL Sark red zone meme that we've all been kind of picking at on social media for last years? So he comes back about 20 minutes later and he says, yes, decisively. And he pulls up this thing called quality drive rate. Quality drive rate, it used to be called ECHL, apparently in y'all's world. But basically, all it really means is that a quality drive is a drive in which you have 1 first down inside the opponent's 40. And that right there, I can tell anybody that. I can explain that on talk radio. I can explain that at a dinner party. You have 1 first down inside the opponent's 40. That's a quality drive. Okay. Then he gives me a second stat, which is points per quality drive. Again, I've still got your attention. You're the most casual person in the world. It doesn't matter what your education level or affinity for math is. You understand on that quality drive, did you get points out of it? And so what we found was that in 2023, that year they lost to Washington in the playoff, they were 6th in the country in quality drive rate. That means that they were one of the best offenses in the country. They were 107th in points per quality drive. That's it, and that's all. Those numbers suddenly become very simple and comestible for any sports fan to understand. Hey, Sark is hell on wheels between the 20. He commands one of the most talented offenses, and he's very creative. But there is a discernible problem here when he gets to the red zone. And when I took that stat and I took it to the Yahoo show the following day, what we can then bridge that into is non-traditional football or more traditional football talk where Andy Staples or someone else can say, hey, the field shrinks inside the red zone. They've got this personnel issue. Maybe they don't have short yardage. Maybe they're not getting enough push and doing traditional run plays. So I just took all the advanced analytics. Like I could not have provided you quality drive rate from a mathematics standpoint. But what I did was I took Parker's work and I turned it into a single conversation piece. And now people can go from, hey, I kind of think Sark sucks inside the 20 to math says you suck inside the 20. And math tends to not be argued with, except in American politics.
Terrific example. Just last week, we had Ralph Russo on, and we asked Ralph where his kind of quant curiosity came from. And he explained that he was first a baseball fan, and he got a kick out of Bill James. Bill is a phenomenal innovator, but one of the things he's probably best at is simplifying his insights, providing just direct ways into the bottom line, not this fancy stuff. And that's a bit of what you're talking about there. We love Parker. We've had Parker on the show. We follow Parker, but that is a great, if painful, it's a painful distillation.
It is.
Some more, it raises a different question for me. And that is,
okay,
how often do we see coaches address their weak spots? I mean, it takes so many different things to be a major football coach, either NFL or NCAA. So many different, no one's going to be good at all of them. And so the ones that last are the ones who somehow buttress and fill in and complement their weaknesses. How often do we see that happen? And I mean, Sark has shown a fair bit of humility. He's been through some challenging things in life. He does a lot really well. This seems to be a weakness of his. How often do we see a coach willing to address that kind of weakness?
This is what I love about analytics, is that it essentially divorces the ego. It takes away the personality trait. It takes away the ego. It takes away the humanity, which is sometimes considered to be a slight against mathematics. But in this case, I think my answer is, how close is the adjustment to your identity? If you have defensive gaps, NFL, college, whatever, but you're an offensive pedigreed head coach, you came up as an offensive coordinator, you will correct very quickly, and it will involve firing someone, right? And you'll replace them, and you will have corrected for that. But what I'm talking about with Sarge specifically, and this isn't a personal attack, this is just something, again, I first noticed this as a fan. And then when he got back to college, and really when he got to Texas, and once they got up to speed in personnel, this tendency reemerged. But how in the world, if you're Steve Sarkisian and your pedigree is play calling specifically, to come out of that Pete Carroll tree of offensive coordinators, and then what I'm talking about is red zone play calling. I'm talking about something that's fundamental to your success. Your adjustment is going to be a lot more impactful on how you define yourself and your quality, your worth, right, as the executive and the leader of the program. So I think it has to do with how close is it to your identity.
Terrific answer. Another terrific answer, and another depressing answer. Thank you very much, Stephen. Really appreciate your contribution.
That's what I try to do.
Okay, so I'm going to have to ask you a couple other questions. One, just while we're on Texas, I was in Columbus, my first time to Columbus, and I'm still kind of grappling with how to explain, how to even think about the fan experience up there. They were finely behaved. Of course, they won. It was a day game, so it's kind of best case. And I think they're better than they were 20 years ago. But it was intense, and it was almost a professionalized college crowd in some way. And as soon as the ball was kicked, they went from being hospitable, normal Midwesterns to being zombies. I mean, it was a really interesting experience. There was a professional quality to it. But I say one of the reasons I'm asking you, Stephen, is because I've been to Kyle Field against A&M, against Texas. I've been to Texas OU many times. I've been in intense college games, but I've not been to Tuscaloosa. I've not been to Baton Rouge. And so I don't know what those things are like. But I was in Michigan last year. Those Michigan guys were so laid back compared to Ohio State. They both came off national championships. It just feels like there's a level of intensity, one step up from what I might have expected. And I'm curious whether that resonates with anything you know or have experienced.
Sure. I think there's a way to put math to that, to be honest. I think it's a combination of economics, sociology, and maybe a dash of religion, to be honest, because what you're describing, you just gave me a very weird cross-section of America, but let me try and do this really fast. Well, one, the average Michigan degree holder and ticket holder inside that building is probably going to come from a higher tax bracket, a higher level of education. What that usually means is, I learned this from being raised by law enforcement, their propensity for causing an incident is going to be significantly lower because they have more to lose, right? Okay. Ohio State is much more workmanlike, blue collar, right? So you're going to have more sidewalk alumni, as we call them. You might see that in Alabama. You might see that in Louisiana State. Also, you're attending games that are not traditional rivalries. Okay, so what you're experiencing is almost more of a curiosity, a meeting. There is a little bit of formality to it, right? There's a little bit of like, how do I describe it? It's like you're kind of putting on. It's like meeting a significant other's parents for the first time, to a degree, until the game starts, right? Because you said everyone was very hospitable. I guarantee you they're not hospitable when they're playing Michigan or Penn State or Michigan State or something like that. So when you get to the South, I would say that that's even more pronounced because Southerners possess and I wouldn't include Texas in this. Southerners, Southeasterners possess another economic disadvantage. I think their identity is polarized to the rest of the United States. And this one sport is wrapped up in sort of their brand and who they are. They want to represent extremely well to outsiders until kickoff. Okay. But again, I think you can trace all this from social migration to demographics of the individual states. Some of the most hospitable environments in college football are in the poorest places of the United States. Yeah. So solve for that.
Terrifically interesting. One of the benefits of being in the SEC now as a Texas fan is that there are all these road trips possible that used to not really be. And one of the advantages of being a little bit older is that you take the game a little bit less seriously and you take the experience a little bit more seriously. And there's going to be some future trips that will involve more sociological observations. All right, Stephen, week one, give us something that you think you did learn from week one, and then give us something you think that people think they've learned right now that you think by the end of the season will be wrong. Some truth and some false truth out of week one.
I thought the Arch reaction was ridiculous. This idea that he has been overhyped. I think if anything, I don't know if this has been said enough, but his camp was very aggressive in their control, as they were with Eli. I'm the same age as Eli, and we were at Ole Miss at the same time together. So I remember, we had the same social circles. The Manning family's always been extremely tactical in how they manage, I say boys, those men as they go through that process. I think if anything, it's just the media machine and we kind of build storylines. But also Texas was ranked, number one, number two, depending on the poll. I mean, he was going to be the recipient of some hype. I think that's been received poorly because he had a very mediocre game. I also think it's very much a work in progress. We probably should have paid Patricia did a very nice job. And I think also they have replaced very well using the portal, and they probably were a little bit more further along in schematic adaptation for week one with that amount of new personnel than we give them credit for. One trend I'm noticing, and it's borne out by the amount of high profile programs starting inexperienced quarterbacks. Like I could rattle them off, but we talked about Ohio State, we talked about Texas, we talked about Notre Dame, all through the weekend. Really, with the exception of LSU Clemson, you didn't have experienced quarterback versus experienced quarterback in the marquee game. So one of the things I've noticed is we're seeing a resurgence in defensive line play, and when the front seven looked lethal this weekend. Now, some of that is just the way that it shakes out this year, is that we have a sort of what feels like a perpetual pipeline of defensive talent. But we saw much more aggressive command. I thought LSU and Clemson especially seemed it was a little bit of a throwback where we're blitzing more, we're doing exotic pressure, we're moving guys around, and I think this might be a broad generalization after week one. I think the sport schematically has adapted to the mobile quarterback to such a degree that they're now comfortable again flushing them. That used to be that was the death knell 15 and more like 12 years ago. With Manziel, right, with Cam Newton, with what the offenses that were being called against Saban's Alabama. Remember, middle linebackers were 260 pounds 12 years ago. They were big boys, right? And then all of a sudden, those young, agile, horizontally inclined, running quarterbacks changed all that. I think we've adapted to where we're almost full circle again. And now the assumption is that every elite quarterback within reason is going to have mobility. Except maybe Carson Beck. But you are going to still be able to apply pressure if you can do it in creative ways. I thought some of the blitzes I saw called this weekend, sending pressure from weird gaps, weird places, delays, spies. I was really impressed by a lot of the defense I saw. Is that a trend? No, I think we saw some young quarterbacks, but I do think the way we're calling defenses has finally adapted to where they're comfortable blitzing mobile quarterbacks.
Got it. Very interesting. All right. If which of the three big winners, I suppose we could even include Miami. Let's include Miami. Which of the four big winners this weekend do you most believe in? Let's set aside Florida State. Call them three big winners. So LSU, Ohio State, and Miami. LSU, Ohio State, Miami. Who do you most believe in coming out of week?
Probably Ohio State as the steadiest hand. I think LSU has the highest upside because another trend I've seen is that we see the established program hire the new DC. He disappoints for 1 year. And then when the personnel actually adjust to what he wants to call, so Blake Baker at LSU, I think you're going to see this with USC in a couple weeks if you want something to watch for. D'Anton Lynn coming over from UCLA didn't register the way that people thought it would last year. It's a personnel deficiency. They're actually not, even with the portal, they're not able to overhaul and renovate as fast as people are assuming. LSU under Blake Baker looked completely revitalized. The way to tell is Harold Perkins. Like, he was utilized effectively, and you really couldn't say that at all last year.
Stephen, is there any chance, maybe a follow-up to that, is there any chance the national champion doesn't come out of the SEC or the Big Ten? I mean, I know there's a chance, but I mean, it's not that. You just said LSU. You're obviously happy about Ohio State. I don't know. What do you think?
Clemson and Miami. Clemson and Miami are your two. If you're looking for a non-Big Two, it's Clemson and it's Miami. If I'm throwing dark horses out there, I would not want to go to Ames, Iowa in the first round. Like, I think Iowa State looks really good, really good. Now, I say that before they play Iowa, which has always been sort of a trap for them. But if I had to pick, it would be those two. And those two, it's because Clemson finally woke up and joined the modern era. And, you want to talk about dogma and ideology getting in the way of numbers? That's Dabo Swinney. Like, talk about laughing at math. I mean, that guy, my God, he looked fact in the face and basically almost walked away from the game because he was so resistant to adapt to the personnel changes and NIL and all that stuff. They have figured that out in a big way. Miami,
no Oregon, no.
No, I mean, I love Oregon. I picked them to win the national title, but they're a Big Ten team. So
yeah,
I mean,
don't forget they're a Big Ten team.
That happened. All right, whatever.
Stephen, you're talking about Clemson. It still seems like they could fall off this year. They haven't proven it yet. They came in high expectation,
sure,
but unclear. And when you name those two teams, I start thinking about quarterbacks, Beck versus Klubnik. It's just 1 week, but man, Beck looked a lot stronger than Klubnik week 1. And the quarterbacks can make such a big difference. It would be fascinating if Miami ends up actually that much stronger, because not least because of the quarterback differences.
Yeah, just remember though, that's Mario Cristobal. And you want to talk about analytics and what the numbers tell you.
Undoubtedly. All right, last question. We got to get you out of here. This is a bigger topic for another conversation, but I thought about it all summer with the world changing around NIL. You are one of the things you're well known for is your Bagman article from way back in the day, before it was legal to pay these kids. There were plenty of schools paying these kids, and you documented it in high journalistic fashion. What's your opinion? And we've only got a minute here. It's a longer conversation, but where do you think we settle? There was this attempt this year to tighten things down. Let's put a budget on things. Let's make them meet certain criteria before we approve payments. And there are some schools that are betting that that's not going to stick. What is the Godfrey opinion on what's equilibrium for the NCAA in the next few years? Is there one?
Yeah, water rises to meet its level, and I don't think we're there yet. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of grandstanding from the political side of this spectrum to try and act like they're going to intercede and create some sort of solution to protect the sanctity of the sport. That's just as much nonsense and lip service and pablum as it ever has been. But I also don't see a fundamental shift in the powers, the haves and the have-nots, or anything like that. The bottom line is that if you can fund one of these programs, you will. And the large programs that succeeded before this change occurred, they're still going to be successful afterwards, as long as they fund it. I think there's a couple examples. We talked about Clemson. They resisted, and then they adjusted. Look at Texas Tech, right? Look at that. That's a moneyed base that is responding to the change. You'll have a couple outliers come in and upset the order, but this sport punishes usurpers. They tend to absorb trends into the power, those with power, and so I don't think a lot is going to change. It's good that the kids are getting some money now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Stephen, hope to talk with you more about that down the road. Thank you for making time for us. Enjoy this season. It does seem to be shaping up to be one of the more open, interesting, unpredictable seasons. We'll see if it plays out that way.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Stephen Godfrey, you can follow him at the Washington Post, at Yahoo, at his new podcast, and he's a co-host on the Yahoo Inquirer podcast with Ross Dellinger and Andy Staples. One of the fun things for some of us on that podcast is that they're all Southerners, so you get this trio of Southern accents in there talking college football. Welcome to the second half of this week's show. This is Cade Massey hosting with my longtime co-hosts, friends, colleagues, collaborators, Eric Bradlow and Adi Wyner. Shane Jensen will be back. In fact, we think he's going to be back soon. We're rolling into the second half of the show. Open topics, open lines, what we used to call open lines. We're recording on Tuesday afternoon. Show will go up on Wednesday, just off the phone. Stephen Godfrey talking a little college football. Guys, I know it looks like a sleepy week. Week 2, there's only one matchup of top 25 teams. That's Michigan going into Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, almost Oklahoma City, Norman, outside of Oklahoma City. 5.5-point underdogs, true freshman Bryce Underwood, most lauded freshman in the game. 5.5-point underdogs. That's a big one. Other than that, it's a little sleepy. I just want to point out briefly, as we transition from a conversation to Godfrey to the rest of the sports world, there's good under the radar games. Baylor at SMU, that's an old Southwest Conference game. It's also like second tier Big 12 versus second tier, possibly first tier, possibly second tier Big 12 versus same on the ACC. We've got Iowa, Iowa State. Iowa State has made some noise already this year. Iowa, always kind of an annoyance, if not contender in the Big Ten, rivalry game. KU at Missouri, another rivalry game. KU looked terrific in their opening game. Exciting quarterback. Going a little further down, what else do we have? UCLA at UNLV. Sleepy. If you're just up for entertainment, UCLA was shellacked by Utah game 1. Could they actually lose another to UNLV? So there's lots of below the radar stuff. We got.
How many of these teams, Cade, do you think might make it to the top 12 that you've just mentioned?
Baylor and SMU for sure. Illinois, I didn't mention it, going to Duke. Illinois is in the mix from the Big Ten. Iowa State's a serious contender in the Big 12. KU's a contender in the Big 12. Mizzou's a long shot. Mizzou's a long shot at SEC. Those are all. And then Michigan and OU are both, off the top tier. They're probably not going to make it, but either one of them could shoot up and make it. So a whole mix of those guys. It's an appropriate question, Eric. It's the benefit of the 12-team playoff. Keeps a lot of teams in contention. Okay, speaking of that, we will come to baseball in a minute because that's exactly what's going on in baseball. But before we do that, Eric is going out to Flushing Meadows in just a few hours. He's going to take in some quarterfinals. Let's touch base about the U.S. Open. Both sides of the bracket are interesting, Eric. You're going to see a couple of interesting matches tonight. So give us an update on the U.S. Open.
On the men's side, it's starting to look, even more inevitable that it'll be Sinner versus Alcaraz. Sinner's on a very easy side of the draw. I mean, he won today in straight sets. So he still hasn't lost a set. He's now into the semifinals. He's going to play the winner of Alex de Minaur and Felix Auger-Aliassime. I don't think either one of them is beating Sinner. So I think it's beating Sinner. So that's fortunate for him. I'm sorry, beating Alcaraz. Today's match, the women's side is where all the excitement is. I mean, Jess Pegula just made it to the semifinals, beat Krejcikova earlier today. But, I didn't post it, but I could have posted it on our X account at W Moneyball. All 8 women, I think, had a chance. And 7 out of the 8 remaining women have all won a major title.
Jeez. Wow.
That's remarkable compared to the men's where it's 2. It's just Sinner and Alcaraz. Djokovic. Sorry. Djokovic has won a few. But it's totally different. I think most bettors would put 95% probability on either Sinner or Alcaraz.
Yeah.
And right now, you couldn't pick 2 women where you would give more than, I'm not sure you would do much more than half. Maybe a little bit more than half for the top 2, Sabalenka and Swiatek. I mean, it's an interesting stat that came out. This is my dark horse. What the hell? I'll pick it now. I'm actually going to see her tomorrow night. I know this is meaningless, and Adi's about to frown because it's a small sample. But Naomi Osaka has never lost a major where she's made it to the quarterfinals. So she's made it to the quarterfinals. Sorry, Adi, it's only 4 times in her career, but she's won all 4 majors. She's undefeated in the quarters, semis, and finals of majors. And so she absolutely destroyed Coco Gauff yesterday, which is not an easy thing to do. She's playing Mukova tomorrow night. I'm feeling really good about Naomi Osaka's game. And when she's on her game, she's got 4 hard court major titles, and I don't see any reason why not. But just the difference between the men's and the women's side. Not that the men's isn't interesting, but like, can Djokovic make it? I mean, I'll say the following. I think I said this last week. If Djokovic wins this major at age 38, and I just want to repeat who he'd have to beat to win this, in my view. He's playing Taylor Fritz tonight, the number 1 ranked American, number 4 in the world. If he beats him, he gets the honor of playing Carlos Alcaraz in the semifinals. If he beats him, he gets the honor of playing Jannik Sinner in the finals. If he were to beat Fritz, Alcaraz, and Sinner, not that there's any doubt he's the GOAT, but he's absolutely the GOAT.
Yeah.
I can't give him more than, you could put any percent you want, I don't know, 2%. No way. He's not beating all 3, and physically he won't. Just physical. It's just that he won't have enough left in the tank at age 38 to face, even if he makes it to Sinner, which I don't think he will. I just don't think. Sinner's going to be fresh. Either way.
Eric, remind us about Osaka. She had some mental, emotional struggles. I think some of it came on the heels of some stuff that happened at the U.S. Open, if I remember correctly, a number of years ago. So my question to you is, how recently has she been back in form? She just kind of slipped off the radar for a while. I don't remember when she reappeared.
Well, she's just come back. She had a child.
Okay.
Also.
Okay.
And so she is ranked. She's 23rd. She's seeded 23rd. So she's come back enough. She had 2 good hard court results this summer and made it to the finals of one, semifinals of another. So she's been playing much, much better. And again, this is always hard to say. Did Coco Gauff have a bad day, or did Osaka have a really good day? But she just beat the number 3 player in the world. I think the final was either 6-3, 6-2, or 6-2, 6-2, and it wasn't close. And if she can do that to Coco Gauff, who's had a very, very good year, she can do that to anybody. So, but yes, she's been back playing well for the last 2 or 3 months. And they asked her, the broadcaster after her match against Coco Gauff asked her, "How are you feeling?" And she says, "Well, I am undefeated in majors when I make it to the quarterfinals." So she obviously knew about that. And so she said it with a smile, but she was saying it somewhat seriously. I don't think she thinks she can't win it. She thinks she can win this.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this is what you have to put into perspective. If she wins this match, the major, she's a year younger than Sabalenka, who's number 1 in the world, and she'll have more majors than Sabalenka. So, I understand Sabalenka's great and is the current number 1, but if Coco Gauff wins this, she has 5 majors, and she's a year younger than Sabalenka. Why can't we put her at some point, if she wins this, in that same discussion of kind of greatness?
Clarification, you just said Coco Gauff, you meant Osaka. But
Osaka, I meant Osaka. Osaka, if she wins, she would have 5 majors, which is, I think Sabalenka has 4. They both have only 1 on the hard courts also. Very similar accomplished careers, and very similar in age.
All right. Well, it's intriguing because she has been away, and this is her first big one back, and she has been through some life changes. So it's always interesting to see whether this is the same Osaka.
And we just also have to say quickly, Venus is in the final 8 at doubles at age 45. So her and Leylah Fernandez are playing together. They had never played before this tournament. They've beaten 2 seeded teams already. They are playing the number 1 team in the world coming up about 4:30 today. So in about 15 minutes, she's 45 and she's in the quarterfinals of the doubles.
That's
so
fun.
We'll see how it goes.
All right, good fun. And speaking of attending events, Odd's going to take in some Yankees here. Maybe still a week out, but you've got a Yankees game in your sights. Tigers, Yankees, no less.
I got 2 games on the agenda. I'm going to Fenway on the 18th. I'm going to Yankee Stadium on the 9th.
Why does a Yankee fan attend Fenway other than he has family in the area? What else is going on?
And that is, I'm going up to Fenway to go to visit the Red Sox to root against them and see the family. We got 2 games going, and
All right. So
Yankee Stadium next week.
Let's talk baseball then. I have a confession to make, an important confession to make. I watched a little bit of regular season baseball for the first time in, I'm going to guess, like 3 years, because.
And I watched a little bit of college football.
Okay. See, we're pulling each other a little bit. Well, that's probably the same reason, because there was college football where there usually isn't college football, which is Sunday afternoon, and they snuck the Sunday night baseball game in there, which was our Phillies. And I just want to note again, for those of us who haven't watched baseball in half a lifetime, this thing where they talk to players on the field during live action is completely insane. I thought it was awesome. I remember seeing it before the last time I did this, but Harrison Bader, the Phillies center fielder, was the target Sunday night. And it's just crazy to get that kind of live take. And I do want to ask one other question. You guys can help me with this. I would like to see an example of these cards that the outfielders, probably all the fielders do, but especially the outfielders, have for positioning by hitter. And so even during the interview, he's like, he's having to like conduct the interview. He's pulling out the card to look where he's supposed to be on this particular batter. I want to see one of those cards. I want to know what they say. Just some team, some card. It doesn't have to actually be a real thing, so it doesn't have to violate anything. I'm just curious what those little cards look like in this day of advanced positioning based on analytics.
Well, I mean, I've never seen one myself, but I've talked to the people who've made them, and they know it's basically positioning for each player, but it also helps them figure out how to orient themselves, because there aren't necessarily markings, particularly on the away games. You have to figure out how to know where to stand. That means you have to find a way to line yourself up, and that's not that easy when you're traveling. So they must have some information about that.
When are we going to move to the 21st century? Why don't, look, they already talked to the pitchers and the things. Why don't they just have something in their hat? Hot, 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 cold, cold, cold. You know, the old gang, start moving left, right, front, back. Or why don't they just tell you, Adi, move 4 steps? I'm just saying, why do they have a paper card? I mean, I just don't. If we're going to use technology, let's damn use technology. Come on.
You're talking to the wrong guy. Adi wants them to not even be able to use a ballpoint pen. He wants those things written in pencil. Are you kidding me? Or charcoal? What do we got? How can we take it down a notch?
He believes in the shift.
I certainly believe in the shift. Shift's part of the game. The thing, I'm generally pretty conservative about the way the game is played. I don't want to change the rules. I don't want the golden at bat. That's the stupidest thing I've heard that there's now being talked about.
Yeah, I heard something about that. That would be pretty darn stupid.
So you guys are all about the all-time stats, and this thing happened last week.
That's right.
That jumps out to me because of how rare it is. Schwarber had a 4 home run game. It turns out there have been 3 of them this year, which is insane because there's only been 21 ever. Something that has only happened. How many perfect games? That's always the gold standard for rarity. How many perfect games in MLB history have there been?
I think it's right around that mark. I don't know.
Right around that number.
I thought it was around 30, but I haven't looked.
24.
24. Okay. So this is about as rare, slightly more rare than a perfect game. I mean, that's really something. Now there is some potentially non-stationarity, more home runs these days. I mean, 3 this year. Why would it tick up? This thing has happened going into the season, happened 18 times ever, 25% less times than perfect games. I mean, come on.
Well, you could, I'll use Adi's theory, a couple things. One is, and you said it, Cade, guys are swinging for home runs more. That's one. 2, it could be that, they're bringing in, it's back to the distribution of bad pitchers. Like, how many bad pitchers am I going to bring into this game? Guys aren't staying in for 7 innings, 8 innings. That's another possibility. Or third, it could just be, we have to think about this. Maybe 3 is not that rare under the, let's say the baseline rate is 1 every 4 to 5 years. Maybe sampling from a Poisson with that rate. 3 is not likely, but I would think this, the standard deviation is what? The square root of 1 over the rate or something like that. So maybe it's, so 3 is rare, but it's not, I could compute if like right now, how many
rare things happen all the time. It's one of my favorite lines that I teach my students. And that's because there's so many rare things that can happen. And eventually someone's going to pack into one of them. I remember earlier in the season, and actually at this point in the season, we could do the same calculation. Yankees center fielder Trent Grisham has never hit more than a tiny handful of home runs in a year. And he's at 28. and he was at 15. He was hitting it at a rate of about 1 in 15, 1 in 16, when his career rate is like 1 in 100. And that was a really unlikely event. And you wonder, is it at that point, are you looking at a different hitter? Or are you looking at just an unlikely event happening because they have so many opportunities? And that's the real rub. I mean, with Schwarber, it's just an interesting thing, right? We know he's a great hitter. He's got 4. Okay, whatever. But with someone like Trent Grisham, and this is actually an interesting question, he's had genuinely a great season, but would you predict he'd do it again?
Yeah.
And my answer is no.
Yeah.
I would not predict he would do it again.
Yeah.
I don't think at age whatever he is, approximately 30, you don't just morph into something that's a genuine power hitter at center field. And there's going to be this pressure on to give him a $25 million contract, which would be, in my view, a mistake based on the analytics, right? Based on the numbers, that this is, you have to shrink hard. Use the formula that Eric has in the back of his board right there. You have to update that prior probability, but not that much, because I'm sticking with that prior. He's got years. It's not like he's just years of mediocrity. And I'm not gonna put too much emphasis on this one season. Okay. Although I've been thankful to see him hit and bring the Yankees. They won every game at yesterday since we last recorded.
That's it.
Well, the other thing that I found speaking about baseball just quickly, is the guy that snuck up on me. Maybe you guys have been paying more attention, but this is why they play 162. When we look back at the stats, forget the trajectory, and we look at Juan Soto's year, all of a sudden,
there he is.
There he is. He's going to be at 40 plus, 100 plus. His OPS is above 900, and he's got a WAR right now of 5.3. So, for a bad year, that's not a bad year.
He had a bad start. He ended up quite excellent. Listen, it breaks our heart because we know that he was so important to the Yankees last year. So he's a great hitter.
He could have stayed. Went across town. Such a violation. Give us something from the last month of the year, last month of the regular season, that y'all are most interested in that doesn't have anything to do with the Yankees. Like, give each of you, give us one storyline or question you have for the last month of the regular season.
Well, I'm looking at Cal Riley. Nothing to do with the Yankees, but how close is he going to flirt with 60? I mean, he's at 50 now. I think there are 25 games remaining,
roughly,
approximately. Yeah. 10 home runs in a month would be a excellent month. It's what he's averaged this season, but nevertheless, it is excellent. So really interested in seeing what he does there, and I'm actually interested to see whether he gets the MVP nod. Mm-hmm. Doing that at catcher is extraordinary, and this is something that I analytically have been toying with for years. I feel like the position adjustments that we make in WAR is a big patchwork of guessing, and a lot of that guesswork is something that we don't really know how to deal with catcher, because you just don't get that kind of production out of catcher. You don't get half that production out of catcher. At the number 2 catcher, this is something to quickly look up. Who is the second most productive catcher in the American League? And you can throw out a major league. And is that catcher half of Cal Riley? Don't you look at WAR, because that's an adjustment. But I'm looking at the batting productivity.
I mean, I have to talk about the Yankees strategy. Doesn't Ben Rice play catcher for us?
Yes, but just a little bit.
Oh, okay, because his productivity could be half of Raleigh's.
Right, half, and he's just the backup. And Ben Rice is actually interesting. Here we are talking about a Yankee again. You did it.
I tried.
Ben is an interesting guy because I did some numbers analysis on Ben. Ben Rice has the biggest, if not the biggest, maybe it's the second, but I think it is the biggest gap between what we call the xWOBA and the WOBA. So the WOBA is a weighted on-base percentage. It's just a single aggregate offensive number. You can put a plus sign on it to adjust for the park, but it's hardly that relevant. And xWOBA takes the velocity off the bat and the angle, and it turns that into an estimated quality WOBA that you would have if what they typically think of the average amount of luck.
So X stands for expected, basically. Based on the fundamentals or the peripherals, whatever you want to call it in the sport, based on the fundamentals, you'd expect a certain WOBA. And you're saying his actual WOBA is outperforming his expected.
It's not even close. It's like his expected WOBA is something over nearly 400, which is league leading territory. And his actual WOBA is in the low 300s, which is average. And it is a complete gap. And turns out he did it again last year. And last year was only 2024, where he only had a handful, he didn't have a complete season. So it was somewhat thought that he would break out. And in some level, he has broken out. He's had a pretty good season, but not a great season. But his ex-WOBA suggests he's the third or fourth best hitter in the league.
Okay. Do you believe in ex-WOBA?
Well, traditionally I have, but now I'm coming to be suspicious.
All right, guys. Let us change to maybe the last sport of the weekend. This is week 1 of the NFL. We have an NFL guest slated for next week, Brian Burke, our longtime friend, ESPN analyst, innovator. Brian Burke will be with us to talk about week 1. But between now and then, we have got a lot of games. We've got 16 games in the queue, and they run all weekend long. They run Thursday night.
Start Thursday. I'll be there on Thursday.
So we'll talk about that in a minute, but we've got games on Friday, and obviously we have games Sunday and Monday. So it's quite the weekend. We are kicking off with the Eagles. It's Dallas in Philadelphia. Eric's talking about being there. The Cowboys are, I think, 6.5-point dogs coming in without
8.5.
8.5 now? I saw 6.5 today.
8.5. I'm staring at it right. Look on the ESPN bet. I mean, there's all kinds of lines, but it's 8.5.
If you cross 7, that's a meaningful thing. So that's interesting. The Eagles also, we can look at futures for the season, and the Eagles are by far the top NFC team. They're right in the mix with the 3 strongest AFC teams. In fact, it's kind of interesting that they're all kind of sitting at about the same expectation. The Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills, even though there's 3 from the AFC and 1 from the NFC. That just speaks to how clearly those top 3 in the AFC dominate the probabilities coming out of that.
Yep. No, I agree. I think it's a very, very interesting season. I just have this feeling the Chiefs, this isn't the Chiefs' year. Like, around the edges, they seem, Travis Kelce's clearly not the player he was. And Mahomes actually didn't have that great a season last year. I'm not saying he's over the hill. He's 29 or 30, but I'm just saying he didn't forget the Super Bowl. He didn't have that great a season last year. Their edge rushers are getting older. So, and I've got to think, look, Baltimore and Buffalo are actually, in my view, more talented teams. Eventually, they're going to beat Kansas City. And I think if one of them especially gets home field, that's the key. Don't have to go to Arrowhead to win the AFC Championship game. So if you're Buffalo and Baltimore, do not lose some random bad game, because you're going to lose some games to some good teams. Do not lose a random bad game, because that can cost you home field, and that could end up being the difference.
So Eric, I don't know that I have many stronger sports wishes this calendar year, than that either Buffalo or Baltimore makes. Just give me either one. Not Kansas City, by God. I'd rather it not be the Bengals, but I'll take them over the friggin' Chiefs. But really,
I haven't even looked at the schedule. They're playing each other this week.
Yeah, they open that way Sunday night. Absolutely.
No, I didn't see that. I'm just looking at it. I've been so caught up on tennis, and then I've been caught up on the Eagles game. I'm looking at the NFL schedule now. This is an incredible slate of games.
It's a good week 1,
incredible.
The even Monday night game is going to be a good one, Minnesota, Chicago. But that Sunday night game, the last time we saw Baltimore and Buffalo, anyway, they were in Buffalo for that division game, a divisional playoff game against Buffalo. And so that's how they ended their season. Now they're starting their season that way. Those are 2 with the highest expectations.
Chargers?
Well, this is what I was going to say.
Chargers?
You're talking about the Chiefs, the 3-way race for home field in the AFC, if you want to call it three-way race. It begins this weekend with those 2. One of those teams that we like is going to get knocked off. And then KC has a chance to get knocked off by the Chargers. They're 2.5-point favorites. It's a Friday night game. Fun week 1 thing. Friday night NFL game. KCA in LA against the Chargers.
It's in Sao Paulo. It's another Sao Paulo game.
Oh, I thought it was in Los Angeles. Oh, that's interesting.
No. It's counted as a home game for the Rams, but it's in Sao Paulo.
Not Rams. You mean Chargers.
Chargers. Sorry, the Rams have an interesting game at home against the Texans. By the way, that's another. See, the interesting thing about that is, let's say the Chargers beat the Chiefs. Okay, they're in some sense they're 2 games up on the Chiefs because the season just started, and they're 2 up because they have the tiebreaker, and they're 1-0. So it's meaningful. I would say the same thing about Baltimore Buffalo. assuming they don't play again this year, which they're not in the same division, they're not going to play again this year. Whoever wins that game essentially has almost a 2-game lead on the other team for home field. This is worth more than one game. This is worth more than one game. Come on.
That's interesting. Well, I meant to reach out to our friend Eric Jeff Argus, our buddy up in Buffalo. I thought about it in the offseason. Jeff's a buddy of ours in Buffalo, big Bills fan, and in some way is responsible for this show coming together because you and I know each other first
That's true.
because of Jeff. So it's hard not to pull for those Bills. All those guys give anything for them to get back to the Super Bowl, except I would take the Ravens.
Hey, you're a Ravens guy.
Well, top 2 teams. I'll take either one of them. Okay, the other big game I think over the weekend is that Detroit Green Bay game, which is Sunday afternoon, an afternoon game, 4:00 game, 4:25 game. Detroit going into Green Bay. They are, coming off a couple of great seasons, but they are the underdogs on the road to Green Bay. Is Parsons? I haven't read. Is Parsons going to be fit enough to play his first game on week 1?
He's planning on playing. Whether they have to inject him or not is a separate issue in the back. He's got a back issue. But yeah, they say he's playing.
Okay, so we could talk a lot about that trade because we have opinions about trades, and they gave up a ton of draft capital, which we know is valuable. They need to enjoy him in the immediate future because they traded away some of the out years. And so this is a big season for the Packers. That's for damn sure.
No, I think you've brought it up. I think Kansas City and the Chargers is a well above average game. I think you've pointed out Detroit, Green Bay, Houston, and the Rams, Baltimore, Buffalo, Minnesota, Chicago. They're not, and the good news is because of the way it's set up, there's 2 of them at 4:00, but I can watch all the rest of them. Like I can watch all of them.
Yeah. Well, they gave us,
and I will.
They've given us a bunch of divisional stuff too, which is fun. To start us off right out of the box with a bunch of these divisional rivalries is one of the reasons that it's such a fun weekend. What about big picture, Eric? When you look at futures for the playoffs or the Super Bowl, does anything jump out to you? We can look at odds, just pick them off of ESPN or whatever.
All right. I'm not just saying this. The Bucks at 30-1. I think they're better than 30-1. I mean, I've heard a lot of people. Look, do you know what team, Cade, has won their division 4 straight years?
Is that right? I didn't know that. Really?
I mean, people don't give them. I mean, by the way, you remember there was that 20-year stretch when nobody repeated in the NFC South.
No, I don't pay much attention to the NFC South, to be honest with you.
Well, whatever. The Bucks have won their division 4 straight years. If they win, obviously, they win this, that's 5 straight years. They're in a weak division. So already that puts you, if they win the division, that already puts you in a top 4 seed. So you at least have 1 home playoff game. You're obviously probably the favorite in that game. All right, so now you're in the conference semifinals. So I just think the Bucks being 30-1, and look, Baker Mayfield, that man can throw the football. And no, and I'm saying if Godwin's healthy, which is an if, and Mike Evans still healthy, and they drafted a receiver in the first round, and their running back, Bucky Irving, they can score the football. Now, whether they'll play defense good enough. So that's the thing. I'm not just saying that as a Bucks fan. The Bucks sitting there at 30-1.
Well, what I most like about it is that the NFC, if you think Philly's going to struggle at all, if you don't think they're just going to plow through the NFC, then the NFC is pretty open. Like taking a long shot in the AFC doesn't make a lot of sense because you've got to have 3 of the big ones to fall down. All 3 of them have to fall down. For the NFC, I mean, any number of teams. Do you think Washington's going to do it again? Probably not. What about the Vikings? Do you think their new quarterback's going to be able to do it? Maybe. The Niners are in there. The Rams are in there. The Packs is in there. The Lions are probably the best of all of them. The Lions could have made the Super Bowl easily last year.
The reason I'm willing to say the Rams also is, remember, I was at that game. The Rams, I'll make it up to my dying day. I'll say the Rams were the better team at Eagles. Like that snow game. The Rams looked like they were the better team. I'll tell you what, it definitely was true. Matthew Stafford was better that day.
It was one of the best. It was one of the best snow performances by a quarterback I've ever seen. It was shockingly good in the snow. Shockingly good.
Shockingly good. So I'm saying, why can't the Rams go to the Super Bowl? Of course they can. Sure they can.
All right. Well, the mystery starts unraveling or unfolding or being revealed to some extent in just 2 short days. So we'll kick the season off on Thursday. We'll talk about it next time around. Why don't we wrap for the whole crew? Eric Bradlow, who's been in here through the whole thing, Adi Wyner, all but the last 10 minutes, Shane Jensen, in absentia, Deion Simpkins, the boss man, keeping us on track all these years. Dee Patel, the new boss lady in town. And for you guys, the listeners, thanks for listening. Oh, Marissa Reyna, our producer as well. Many thanks to her. For you guys, the listeners, thanks for being with us. Come back and join us next time. Between now and then, enjoy your sports.